Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I wore my special extremely repaired shirt that I'll show you that my mum repaired for me recently, and she said to me, Layla, you realize that this probably has to be thrown out. And I was like, no way, Mum. I could wear it with my jacket and no one will know. So that's what I do. I have an absolute obsession with repair. When Jeanette invited me, she just told me she didn't realize that I was quite such a nerd on this factor, and I completely am. And I'm going to share with you some of the projects I've done around trying to activate repair. So you might notice I'm Australian. I'm sorry if I speak too fast. I get extremely excited about all of this stuff. So that's why they have those nice words up there to help. So I like to design experiences that challenge people to think differently about how the world works. I've done animations and toolkits and a lot of different things in my creative practice. But I also really like to design these cognitive experiences. And so we activate that through the Unschool, which is a global movement. We have some Unschool alumni in the room and some previous mentors, Kyle. It's an experimental knowledge lab for adults where we teach people how to mess with the system for positive change. And we run programs around the world. Our next one's in Mumbai. And because I started this school 3 years ago and we're nomadic and we have over 350 alumni from 39 countries, it started to get a little bit intense. So I recently brought a farm in Portugal to turn this into our schoolhouse. It's an old olive mill. This is the olive mill. This is my hammock. I just want you to know I spent summer here. It was amazing. And I have 135 olive trees, which are currently full of olives, which is extremely exciting. So a few years ago, I did one of my first repair projects. I ran this thing called the Repair Workshops in Melbourne, Australia. We took 8 artists and designers. The idea at the time was to pair left and right brains together, like creatives and nerdy people. Even though now I would say that all people are creative and all people are nerdy. It's just different. But the idea was we locked everyone in a basement for a week. In hindsight, that was probably not the best thing to do because the basement was really creepy. You were allowed to leave at nighttime. And we salvaged, I think it was like 3 tons of trash from the local charities. So in Australia, on the weekends, people like to clean out their closets, and they take all their stuff, which is basically shit, and take it to the front of your like cute little charity store and just dump it there. So every Monday morning, there's like this ginormous pile of people's old crap. And what happens over the weekend is it often gets mildew from the rain or the dew. So on Monday morning, they come and they have to get rid of all that stuff. And it's over $1 billion per annum in Australia alone that they spend on landfilling donated goods in the charity sector. So I went on Monday mornings with a truck and just took all that stuff and then dumped it in the bottom of this basement and then got these lovely people and we wore lab coats. We were in a basement, guys. But the idea was inspired by the repair manifesto that Platform 21 did. So I don't know, in 2009 or something, no, 2009, I was traveling through Europe and I met the woman who was founding the Platform 21 in the Netherlands, and they had this repair stuff going on, and I was like, this shit's cool. And she said, well, you should do something like repair-y. And I was like, okay, cool. There wasn't really quite the same level of like global engagement around this as far as I knew. And the internet was so early on those days. Anyway, it wasn't actually, it was quite advanced. But you know, social media wasn't. So anyway, we redesigned the Repair Manifesto and decided to do this project. And so we spent 5 days locked in the basement repairing as much of these 3 tons of trash as we could. And then we opened up for public repair session, so people could book a repair session. And I strategically made it happen on this weekend that the basement that we were in was open to the general public. So every year there's this like open buildings in Melbourne. And so we like hijacked the minds of 500 random humans who were just paying to go on a tour of this building, and they would have to walk through this chaos. And then they would be like, what's going on here? And I'd be like, oh, don't you know about repair? Did you not know about the fact that your mobile phone is designed to break? Let's talk about planned obsolescence. So yeah, that was really fun. It was really crazy and it was really fun. And there was so many beautiful stories, as I'm sure everyone in this room who's ever engaged in an act of repair can share, the incredibly beautiful stories of functionalizing, not a real word, should be, refunctionalizing something that has emotional, social, or functional value to people. This is one of my favorite stories. This, this lady here that you can see in her toaster was one of the women who was mentally hijacked on her tour of the nice old building. And she said, what are you young people doing? And we said, oh, we're repairing things because I've got this toaster that I got for my wedding. It's broken. And we said, why don't you make an appointment for tomorrow and come in? So she did. And I was responsible for allocating the broken product to the appropriate repairer. So if it was more arty, it went to the more creative. If it was really techie, it went to Jason. And Jason worked on this toaster for like 2 hours. And this woman, I kept walking past, and I noticed that she had this, you see what that is? What is that? It's bread at this point. And I said, did you bring your lunch? And she said, no, I brought bread to test the toaster. And I was like, you are my hero. Unfortunately, the sad ending of the reality is that he couldn't fix the toaster, but nonetheless, we all had a wonderful time together, and that's actually part of it. There were so many amazing stories of little kids getting little bubble machines fixed, and one guy who had an old Bakelite egg beater that was his mother's, and he came in like both days because one of the guys kept it overnight and repaired it. It was like the little mechanism had to be re-welded. It was such a beautiful story. So anyway, why do I did I do this? Well, other than the fact that it's fun to randomly experiment with humans in a basement, I wanted to live out one of my heroes' ideas, which is if you want to predict the future, you should design it. And I'm a big fan of Buckminster Fuller and many other thinkers and theorists. And so then a few years later, when I was invited by the National Gallery of Victoria, this is the National Gallery of Victoria. Anyone been there, NGV, in Melbourne? So it's a fancy place, right? It's super fancy. It's lovely. It's one of my favorite galleries in Australia, except for Mona. It's better. You should go there. But so they invited me to do a workshop in their main auditorium. And so I said, do you guys have any like electronic waste lying around? Because electronic waste is a massive problem. And they were like, oh, maybe. So we discovered that they had this huge box of like, what are they called? These things. Keyboards. And mouses? Mices. Mouses or mices? I gotta say though, when you say the circular economy routing map in Australia, that's naughty. You might want to, because I giggled every time you said that. Yes, exactly. There's something else going on there. So anyway, what we did was we took over this like entry and we basically gave everybody we just threw all these things out and we gave everyone tools to pull it apart. And we invited people, anyone, including the security guard who was supposed to be working, to just help us disassemble these products and do an autopsy. Why an autopsy? Because, hey, if you've got to pull something apart, it's good to understand how it works. And we created this like emerging artwork that we documented. But then for me, the thing was at the end, we got everybody to help us identify what kinds of materials they were. So mixed materials or plastics or metals. And what most of the people who came there was that turns out things are not designed to be disassembled. You have to really, really, really smash them apart, which was very fun for many people. It's like therapy. But this was a really interesting conversation. We identified that there was only like, I can't even remember what the statistic was, a very small amount was actually recyclable. So I whoa, didn't know that was going to happen. I really like to create these experiences that engage people cerebrally and physically and that motivate them to consider the way in which everyday consumer goods are designed and how most of them are designed to break and also designed to be trash. That's the reality of our consumer system. And so I feel like one of the most powerful ways we can make change is to design better products, services, and systems. And as you all know, we live in a linear system where the linear system of taking things out of the ground, transforming them into usable goods, and then putting them back in the ground, usually in the holes that we made taking stuff out, is really stupid. It makes no sense. Nature has no time for this, right? And it creates all these externalities, which I love that I'm in the London School of Economics because I love using the word externality and people don't know what it means. And I'm like, are there economists? Are there economists in the room? You're not an economist, or you are? Oh, shit. Are there any economists in the room? This is a lost opportunity.
Monday, someone will get what it means.
Exactly. Well, externalities are things that are not accounted for in the system, which is basically what we do with our entire economic structure, is that we create things that are designed to lose value over time so that you are then economically motivated to then go and obtain that value from the same good or service. You know, one time early on in my career, I was working with a design studio and they had a brief for a disposable toaster. Like this isn't a conspiracy. Anyone who's worked in mainstream consumer development or pulls things apart for fun and for a living knows that most things today, it's become ubiquitous within the consumer goods section. But the thing is that when we look at the system that we live in, and we live on this extremely beautiful, giant, rotating ball of magic called planet Earth, that we came from, like every single one of us has water in our body and breathes air and apparently likes food. And that in itself means that we are biological systems connected to this beautiful big biological system called planet Earth that we don't take natural design lessons from. And a lot of this disconnect that we've created is because we create things that don't fit within any natural systems. And a lot of the work that I do, this is one of my new favorite slides, a lot of the work that I do is try and get people to think differently about what it means to be sustainable, because there is a legacy issue we have of this idea of making decisions that don't screw up the natural systems that sustain life on Earth. And so I'm really into trying to bust the myths that happen around it. So like, I'll give you the example that I usually do. Let's all play along. Okay. When I say the word sustainability, say the first word that comes to mind. Sustainability.
Green.
You see how there's usually like a unanimous eco-green. So most people have a very obvious schematic reference to the word sustainability. Green, eco, biological, biodegradable. They're the terms that describe material properties rather than environmental benefits. And this is what most people have, even those of us who are like, I love the planet, it's awesome, let's not destroy it and move to Mars. And then those people who are like, let's destroy the planet and move to Mars. Apparently there are some. I love that this is all being typed. So amazing. If you're just reading that, yeah, that's funny. Okay, so the problem that we have is that when we use this kind of very kind of simplistic thinking about the problems that we face, then it's very easy for the human brain. I'm a designer and a sociologist, and I've done a lot of work in cognitive sciences. I'm really interested in behavioral economics too, being the representative of this place. So when we think about something like climate change or any other big pressing environmental issue that we face, one of the problems is that we have perpetuated a negative bias, a negativity bias is through this negative messaging. And I love what these guys are doing at Restart, because they're reframing the message about it not being taking stuff away, but giving people something. And that most of the information that we get about the planet is that it's dying and we're responsible. And I feel that most humans feel extremely guilty and then ignore the guilt. And so then we have this cycle that perpetuates. And so why and how does design play a role in this? And how can we all design things that work better? Well, as you all know, this kind of stuff's intentional. It's intentional that there are very different plugs for everything. Very different. And then every time something new comes out, a new plug comes out. Who has a drawer full of these? Not just because you guys repair things and use this for scrap. But the thing is that it's like, it's insane. This shit is done intentionally. People sit there and go, oh, how can we sell more chargers? Like, how do you get off on that? It's like, it's crazy. And design is one of the most powerful social influences that we have governing the way in which human behavior forms and how we as a society evolve. From the fact that now they're saying that we have, what is it called, tech neck? You know, like this problem that we have? Who is old enough to remember Nokia 5110s and the phenomenon of our thumbs getting longer? Oh, dude! You have one! Wow! It looks miniature. It looks so small. It's crazy. Oh my gosh, Snake is the best game. But So funny. Okay, so but basically, like, yeah, we had long thumbs. So basically, design is this huge social influence that it physically forms us, it structures our brains, it influences so much about the world, and not just in negative ways, in extremely positive too. But we don't design things that have information loops that empower the consumer or the individual who's out there using a product to do something with it. And recently I was talking to a product developer and they were like, well, if we can design instructions to put it together, I guess we could design instructions to take it apart. And I'm like, So let's do that then, shall we? And this idea of like this ununiversal design, like things are intentionally designed to not be universal. They're designed to be like enemies of each other, like whatever the ununiversal word would be. Is there a word for that?
Proprietary.
Assholey, I think maybe is more appropriate. This is on the internet, right? Okay, I'll stop swearing. Okay, so like I said, I'm a massive fan of Bucky. And I do believe this, and I've seen it happen. And that is that if you want to design something, so we already design everything in the world. We design policies, we design our relationships, we design products, we design roads. But if we want to change the systems that don't work for us as a collective whole, as a species living as a unified whole on this planet, then we need to design new systems to make the old ones obsolete, rather than invest all of our energy trying to fight the existing systems, because that gets really exhausting. So a couple other pieces of work that I've done to try and help address this. I'm super aware of time, so someone start throwing things at me when it gets too long. A few weeks ago, I worked with an amazing illustrator. We developed this introductory guide to circular systems design, which is basically using systems thinking in the circular economy through the design practice. And we want to develop a series based on each of the design sectors. Is anyone here a designer? Yeah, so as you all know, the design sector, very multifaceted. If you're a graphic designer, you don't know how to talk to an industrial designer. And so we have this huge community of people that are under-resourced in figuring out how to be the agents of change within their organizations and within this extreme consumer-driven machine. And that's something that we're really trying to address. So we also developed a superpower kit because I got this crazy title, Champion of the Earth, from the United Nations, which is a real thing, which I was Googling as they were offering it to me. I am very proudly a champion of the earth. But the conversation that I had with one of the amazing designers who works with me, Emma Segal, which I said, do you think I get superpowers now? She's like, oh, you already got superpowers, girl. I'm like, oh yeah, like the power of getting shit done. And she was like, yeah, like the power of, you know, being wrong. And we like, came up with these 12 everyday superpowers that anyone has to change the world. So we try to develop these tools that can be shared in the world, and mainly through this idea that you can change systems by intervening at the points where there's the most leverage for change. And I'm a total systems nerd. Is anyone else a systems nerd? Oh, I love it. This guy's arm goes up every time I ask.
This one's a big one.
And it's like a big one. It's like I'm trying to touch the ceiling. I'm such a systems nerd. Okay, we can nerd out on that later. But so basically, I think that we need design-led systems change, and not just designers like the people who do graphic design or industrial design, but the designers of policy and the designers of businesses. Like there's so much in this world that we have created, that we've constructed in order to facilitate our own needs and desires, and none of it's static. It's always changing. So there's a lot of opportunity for intervention. I like to break it down that there's like 3 main systems at play in the world. There's the human-related systems, which is our social constructs, like education and the legal system. None of these things are real. We just kind of made them up and then tell people that there's a legal system and you should be scared of police. And that social system relies on the industrial production. It relies on having, you know, legal books and schoolhouses. And all of those systems, the human design systems, the industrial production, they all rely on nature. Nothing is apart from nature. And we forget that. We totally forget that we are in a dynamic, interconnected world. And there's a really fantastic quote that I always remember whenever I'm trying to like solve a complex problem, is that we don't want to be tomorrow's problem makers today. And this is something that I always try and encourage people who feel that they don't have the agency to make change. One of the really big issues that we faced in the sustainability movement and getting people to adapt, other than being like really melancholic about it all, has been that we've encouraged a surface over substance, not intentionally, but it's really easy for people to like Google and go, oh, biodegradable, awesome. And then we've discovered through life cycle assessment and other scientific investigations into how the planet works, because it turns out we didn't really invest that much of our scientific investigation skills into how the planet works. Just say that more times and it gets creepy, right? Actually, it's one of the reasons I brought a farm, because I really wanted to understand how the planet works. And I've lived in cities my entire life, and I like didn't know that tomatoes need to be pollinated the way they do. Like, why didn't anyone tell me that? Like, I eat tomatoes, I should know this. Okay, so basically we have this, this perception of change, and we think that change is not constant. Not you guys maybe, but like collectively as a society. And that ultimately we resist changing because change feels like complicated. But we don't accept as well the fact that we live on this finite planet with finite resources and that we're running out of those resources. And so what I like to tell people is like sustainability is really just about getting that line along with that line. Because even if we move to Mars, just if we got there, because it's still extremely impossible right now, we would have to take all of the things that make the oxygen to grow on Mars. And I would like to know how it is that people have decided that they're going to figure out how to create the multi-dimensional, incredibly interconnected, complex thing called planet Earth on Mars. Has anyone been to Biosphere 2 in the Arizona desert? You should look it up. They tried to replicate Earth in a closed environment for 2 years, and they locked these people in there. It failed. I went there recently. The techno world underneath it was crazy. All of the technology needed to try and make 8 humans stay alive, and that's even on this planet. Anyway, so I'm going to wrap up because I know I've been going on a little bit long, and it's hot in here, right? Is that just because I'm running around? How many percentile? I almost got killed by a tram door on the way here. Is it trams? What are they called here? Tube. I almost got killed by a tube door on the way here. It's like a very close death experience. Okay, so how many percentage of the world's carbon emissions are attributed by food waste? Guess. 5, 3? God, you guys are so optimistic. 17, 14, well, okay, no one reads UN reports on this in their spare time, clearly. It's 8% of the world's global carbon emissions are attributed to food waste. Why do we have so much food waste? Tell me.
Because people don't bloody make soil out of it.
Yes, they don't compost, but no, why is it that there is such a huge amount of food waste?
It's by design.
Yes, okay, no, but why? Like, is it because we have aesthetic standards in supermarkets? What else? Use by dates on things confuse people? Yes?
People are lazy.
Okay, these kinds of judgments don't solve the problem. Okay, let's put people are lazy on the ideas board. I recently read a study that explains that one of the reasons people waste a lot of food is because of the desire to show affection to their loved ones. So most of us know what happens at any holiday event. We overbuy and we have too much food because it's a sign of like love and care to feed those that we like and those that we don't as well. I don't know why that came out. But okay, so basically, so we have like use by dates and we have aesthetic standards and then we have all of these factors and laziness apparently. There's all these factors, but are you sure there's no other reasons? No one can think of any other reasons? Nobody's watched my TED Talk, clearly. Sell more food.
Because we produce too much.
We produce?
Overproduce.
It's in the wrong place, basically.
Resources are design.
There's inequality in where food is growing, basically. I don't know how to
The food is grown in a location where the people aren't who need to eat it, and then the transport issues. Yeah, actually transport is a huge issue with waste, which is why we have all the packaging that we love so much, to try and protect it from damage in the transport, because we've decentralize so much of our food production. But actually, you guys are missing one of the main things, and that's the refrigerator. So this thing has not changed in design, technically, in 50 years since it was first made. And if anyone later wants to have the full history of the refrigerator, come and find me, because I know all about these kinds of everyday products. It's really creepy. But essentially, the refrigerator has this thing called the... Does it actually do crisping? I call it the soggy drawer. And actually, in the UK, you had a government-funded report released a few years ago called the Soggy Lettuce Report. I am not making this up. By RAP, which basically explained that the most wasted product in the UK was lettuces because they go soggy in people's refrigerators. But this is to the tune of like 500, I don't know the exact number, it was like $500 million pounds. It was a shit ton of money that basically was wasted as a result. But this is the global phenomena. Like your celeries go limp, your carrots look so sad. And so what happens? What do you do with them? Let's be honest. Let's be honest, people. They go in the trash. No one's eating the limp celery. It tastes like shit. If you put it in water, it rehydrates itself because of this amazing thing that nature does, right? Let me get a little nerdy on this. So basically, if you have leaves that fall from a tree, thanks to nature and its whole like closed loop, natural, circular system design, it's like, oh, hey, leaf, like oxygen is going to work with you and all of the other microorganisms to biodegrade you into making the lovely soil that then produces the next tree, right? Circular life shit. So essentially, in this environment, all the carbon that was stored up in that growing material during its life is put back into the atmosphere, no more. So that's what the term carbon neutral means. But if you go and take that leaf, or in this case a lettuce, and you put it in a landfill environment is anaerobic, meaning it has no oxygen, and then these like cool little naughty microorganisms. I can't believe I'm explaining it like this. Not how I usually do. So microorganisms basically degraded in a way that produces methane, and methane is a 25 times more potent greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. So your lettuce or that leaf ending up in landfill is potentially contributing 25 times a greater impact on the planet than had you eaten it or had it been left in nature to biodegrade. Refrigerators, people, refrigerators. Like, think about it. If we redesigned the refrigerator, we would be able to dramatically reduce the amount of food waste. Of course, yes, we can encourage people to deal with their waste at end of life, and they can put it in the thing, and they can do the right thing, whatever, great. But also, you could just stop the waste from happening at the beginning. And this is really where design plays an absolutely critical part. Oh, FYI, quick hack. I'm stopping in 2 minutes. One of these babies, and you'll have fresh vegetables for weeks on end. I tell you what, you know why? Because you know when you're on an airplane and you get really dry skin? Does that happen to people? Because, you know, our cells are made of water, and so is your broccoli. And so what happens is when it's in that non-crisper drawer, it's exposed to too much, circulating air, so it dries out. Its cells basically lose moisture. But if you put it in a cute little box like this and you make it all tight, it's like all nice and comfortable. Jesus, I'm going to stop now because it's really getting weird. But one of the big issues that we have, and this is what I'm trying to get to the point. Okay, so sustainability is pitched in a way that doesn't get people to engage with it and get excited. We need to reframe sustainability as an opportunity, but also we need to stop focusing on waste. Really, this is so important. Recycling validates waste. In any market, when you have a very efficient recycling system, what happens? People use more of the recyclable materials. In fact, you go to a store and you're like, oh no, I don't need a bag. And they're like, but it's paper. I'm like, don't guilt me into this shit. Like, I don't need a bag. But also, if you're in the business of recycling, you are economically motivated to continue to have your free raw material delivered to you. So ultimately, if we focus all of our energy on just tweaking at this end of the system, we're not actually going to dramatically change the way in which we can embrace the incredible opportunity. I love the way I didn't swear on the slide. But this incredible opportunity of redesigning the systems that exist around us. And I think, well, I didn't expect that to happen. I think that one of the things that is extremely important for us to share with the people that we engage with is that every problem that we face as a species, as an individual, is just an opportunity for finding something new, right? Like, every problem has the opportunity to give us some new information. And I'm going to end on this. The last thing is this most recent project we're working on is to try and address this, like, Everyone's obsessed with waste. So, and we know waste's a massive problem. We know it is, and the ocean really knows it is too. And so does our salt, FYI, because it's full of microbeads, microplastic beads. But the thing is that, again, talking to this idea of reframing, we're launching this post-disposable campaign, which is a global movement to see how long it'll take only 7.4 billion people to go post-disposable. Because what is the future? The future has to be post-disposable. We have to figure out how to design all of our products, services, and systems to be part of a system that is regenerative, that doesn't take from nature at the cost of everything else. And we design systems right now to normalize disposability rather than maximize sustainability, and that is a travesty. So I'm sure you guys are already fully involved in this, but I hope that that some of the tools that I've shared with extremely quickly right now can help you guys transfer this information to the people that you work with, because at the end of the day, we have an amazing opportunity to redesign the systems, and the future that we're all going to be part of is designed by the actions we take today. So thank you so much, and I'm like right on 8 p.m. So